Christchurch residents held a public meeting last week. They are really concerned about the perceived increase of youth crime. In fact, I think across the city. So if you were in power, what would you do? Because what they were saying at this meeting is that this becomes political now.
Yeah, look, I mean, we've got to give the police the tools that they need to apprehend criminals, whether that's actually adjusting the pursuit policy, but it also means giving them powers to tackle gangs, which is often sitting at underlying a lot of this crime wave. That means breaking up gangs who are associating, consorting. It means making sure the police have warrantless search powers, whether in gang pads or cars, to actually look for illegal guns, which is a major driver of our violent crime at the moment, and also to make sure we ban gang patches in public places. But the other piece is obviously for serious young offenders, as you and I have said before, is giving the judges an option to create a new class, a serious young offender class, and to be able to direct 15 to 17-year-olds that may have committed 2 ram raids, 2 aggravated burglaries. They're actually at up to 12 months in a military academy, working with our best leaders in the military, but also community organisations alongside them.
It's interesting you say this. I've spoken to 4 mothers in Christchurch who are absolutely beside themselves, saying one's got a 10-year-old and he just goes out straight away with his mates who are up to 14 years of age, and she's saying, do something, take him away, I can't cope. That is the reality that we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I had a mum just show me a photo of her son the other day who had completed a program that we've based some of the thinking around the military academies on, called Limited Service Volunteer Program. And they're getting up to sort of 80% of kids actually, not getting involved or reoffending at all. And she just said the pride that he had, the intervention was a very powerful one for him, and got this young man's life back on track. And I just thought, I appreciate all the opposition and everyone wants to bash us up about it, but we're doing it because we care about these young people, but we do need to make some interventions so they understand rights and responsibilities and discipline and consequences is important. I think, Chris, the only other thing I'd say, it was interesting watching the Q&A interview, and it's something that I've felt strongly about for a long time. There's only one goal that this government has on law and order and crime, and that has been a reduction in the prison population. And so we now they've set a target of 30%. I think they're well over 20% now. But, that's the only goal that we've got, to reduce the prison population by 25%, 20%, which is what the government's doing. But what's the link between that? It would be great to have prison population going down if crime's going down, but it's the complete opposite. So, that just doesn't make any sense to me either.
Violent crime, on that note, on that Q&A program, was revealed is up by 30% since Labour took office. But what do you attribute that to? Because couldn't you also argue that this is possibly a byproduct of the pandemic, the lockdowns, the different societal issues that come with that?
I think it's been 6 years of a government that actually says, look, we just want to lower the prison population. We'll remove 3 strikes. At every opportunity, they've gone soft to side with the offenders rather than victims. I was in a heartbreaking situation a couple of months back. I was in a dairy, 1 room wide. Mum and dad live above the shop. They're 32 years old. They had a 5-year-old that slept on the mattress behind the counter. And at 2 a.m, a car comes through the middle. They've subsequently been ram raided 3 times since then. And they're sitting there going, we've done everything right. We paid, we work 2 or 3 jobs. We pay all our taxes. We never go on welfare. We educate our kids. And all of a sudden, that's the consequence of what they're dealing with. Go to Peterson's Jewellery in Maryvale, where I went and popped in one day, and lovely couple, run that business for a long time. 3 people come in and smash and grab and run off. Hugely traumatising for the customers, for the owners.
Well, in fact, the other Peterson Jewellery in Bush Inn Centre was ram raided as well just last week. So It's happened now twice to this to the owners, presumably they own the same business. National wants to scrap the current medium wage requirements to bring in migrant workers, and I know you'd give them a part of the residency, and that sounds good, but isn't this just also a recipe for exploitation? I mean, I know of several cases on the outskirts of Canterbury of people employing Filipino workers, and the amount of exploitation that went on there was frankly abhorrent. So if we're saying let's not give them the $30 an hour, doesn't this open the floodgates to exploitation?
No, well, what we're saying there's two things there. One is we want to make sure we've got the highest standards of worker welfare. That's non-negotiable. That we put a lot of effort in that. But the second piece, Chris, is that to bring a worker in from overseas, whether it's say working in agriculture or frankly anywhere, tourism is another good example. You have to have well and truly above the median wage to be able to start them to bring them in. So they're doing a job that a Kiwi is doing at $4 or $5 an hour extra. And all we're saying is let's just make sure in tourism, where we're short a lot of workers at the moment, that they are aligned with their Kiwi counterparts is the real problem, because the government really doesn't want immigration, and so as a result has set a criteria to say I think it's it's $28, $29 for example in tourism per hour, but there are other workers there on minimum wage or slightly above at $23, $24 an hour, and as a result you've got this inequality happening between those workers. So we just want to make sure that it's industry appropriate, but we make sure that we've got obviously minimum wage requirements, we've got welfare reform, welfare workers and rights are sitting there. The same reason why we said we want to double the amount of RSE workers to support horticulture over the next 5 years from 19,000 to 38,000. But it's to make sure that if you get an RSE worker, you better look after them, because if you don't, you're denied, and obviously we'll prosecute you heavily.
National wants to resume live exports of cattle, saying it could be done with a quote, gold standard set of rules and regulations to protect animal welfare safety. One commentator, I think, picked up on something I thought was interesting and said, why would National want to die on a hill with this particular topic, which seems almost irrelevancy and a hark to the past?
Well, here we are. We've just lost $500 million in our kiwi fruit industry that we left money on the table because we didn't have workers. We've got a $500 million industry in live exports, which other countries will actually fill for us. And we've got a country that's actually declining and our economy is shrinking at the moment. So what we're saying is, look, this is conditional on two things. One is we need to make sure that we've actually got gold standard animal welfare transportation. And that's important because actually it is a poor industry in the sense of you have to have specialist ships. The last live exports out of I think Napier 2 weeks ago were done on a state of the art ship. They're $100 million each. They have air conditioning, they have water, they have density rules. They're constantly monitored. Nicola Grigg from Selwyn actually went out and actually saw the ship, was so impressed, and has been getting daily uptakes as that livestock has moved to overseas. And the second thing is we want to register of actually some countries have to have standards of animal welfare like we have here in New Zealand. And if they don't, we don't export to them. So there are some pretty good guardrails around it to make sure that we actually are putting animal welfare at the heart of what we're doing, both in transportation, but also in the final markets as well. But New Zealand doesn't have the luxury just to turn off $500 million and hand that over to Australia as well.
How do we know, though, that the countries where these livestock animals are going to treat them with the humane values that we may value in this country? Because there's no regulations.
Make sure that we certify and we license them to do so. That's the work that we'd have to do. It's not just send them off and just get some reassurance. We have to have reassurance and actually audit and check that that's the case and that's happening.
How do we do that, though?
We make sure that we go through a licensing process and a certification process and understand what happens with the animals when they arrive. And actually we check that off and sign that off by each country.
Okay, inflation. It seems to be almost every week now that the likes of Stats NZ or one of the economists puts out a statement saying inflation is increasing again, or the cost of living or the cost of groceries is increasing by 10%, or the supply of groceries to get to the supermarkets is increasing by 10%. Once again, people, I guess, are sick of the rhetoric. We know this is going to happen. It's almost a weekly occurrence. We hear this type of news. So what is fundamentally going to change if you were in government?
The recipe is very clear. Make sure you don't pass costs on to businesses that lead to higher prices. Think national insurance, national awards, all those kinds of things. Make sure that you open up the economy and remove the bottlenecks around immigration so that businesses can grow the productive economy. Control government spending, which has been out of control. We're spending $1 billion more each and every week, and treat it like it's your own money. Give people tax relief through just inflation, adjusting those tax thresholds, as we've talked about, lift them up by the amount of inflation. and then make sure the Reserve Bank has a single mandate, not a dual mandate as it has today, just a single-mindedly focus on getting inflation below 3%. We're in a place now where this government's focusing on is it's because it's addicted to spending. It's you watch, they'll start talking about creating new taxes, and then we've already increased our borrowing tremendously over the last 6 years, and no one's talking about growing the economy, and that's what we've got to get back to, is learning how to grow our way out of this.
We're in election year. It seems every week there's a strike now, whether it's between teachers, principals, the correction service staff went on strike. Many teachers, of course, just recently. When you talk about addicted to spending, though, arguably it's election year, so the government will start trickling down or trickling out the cash for these sectors because it wins votes. Is that being addicted to spending, or is that doing the right thing?
Well, look, let's be clear. We're spending $1 billion extra each and every week. The government has now collected $17,500 equivalent per household, another $43 billion in tax, because inflation actually has been driving a huge tax take. So they've got plenty of money, but they're choosing to spend it in building centralised bureaucracies. Think about, the polytechnics, for example. 16 polytechnics get merged into one. We lose $200 million, another $300 million needed to sort of carry on with that. Think about the district health boards. We've spent $500 million already just merging and building a massive bureaucracy in Wellington. All of that money needs to go to the front line and to the frontline people like nurses and teachers and who desperately need it.